are on understanding the self. I believe I have already discussed with you the things that you need to know, including the definition of the self, what are the different self constructs that includes self-esteem, self-efficacy, self-confidence, and the very last one is self-concept. Now, all of these things, all of these ideas, by now you should be able to master the definition and how is one different from the other so that we can be able to have our own understanding, and we are in one boat when we pursue with our discussion for the entirety of the semester for understanding the self. Okay, so now we proceed with our formal discussion with the lesson on how the self is viewed in various perspectives by starting off with philosophy. I understand you already had an idea on what philosophy is all about when you were in your senior high school year, but let me just first review you on what philosophy is all about. By definition, philosophy etymologically came from the Greek words philo, meaning to love, and sophia, meaning wisdom. So you put the two together, philosophy just states that this is the love for wisdom. And what is the difference between wisdom and intelligence? When we talk about intelligence, these are the practical knowledge that you already know, that you have acquired from school, from your family, from the environment, from the community. And wisdom is very much different from intelligence in the sense that this is the application of the practical knowledge that you do already possess. And this is basically influenced by your experience, by your environment, and on the way you interpret things and in the way you reflect upon on the things that is going on around you. Its real definition states that it is the science that by natural light of reason studies the first causes or highest principles of all things. Having said that, philosophy is considered a science because although it is part of the social sciences, it still focuses on following a certain procedure and employs a certain behavior, just like that of following the scientific method. In philosophy, we do not use laboratory tools like the ones that we use in natural sciences, like microscope, thermometer, and the like. But we are not also dealing so much on discussing things in terms of supernatural divinities or entities like God, faith, and religion. Otherwise, it will become theology. But what do philosophy use is the natural light of reason, or what we call the unaided reason, and that is the capacity of humans to think and to reason out. In contrary to the other social sciences or any other branch of science, is that philosophy studies all things. Not just, for example, yung biology, it just studies living things. Otherwise, they don't study it anymore. Kung wala kang buhay, hindi ka course ng study ng biology. But when, for example, psychology, we study human behavior and mental processes. Apart from that, we don't intend to study anymore, no? Kung hindi connected sa mental processes at sa mental behavior, hindi na siya focus, hindi na siya priority ng psychology. But in the field of philosophy, pinag-aaralan lahat, no? Human beings, animals, plants, the environment, and even how we view death. No? From birth to death, lahat po yan ay focus ng philosophy. It abides with the first causes or the highest principles. I hope you do remember principle of identity, principle of non-contradiction, principle of excluded middle, and the principle of sufficient reason. All of these things were discussed when you were in senior high school in Introduction to the Philosophy of the Human Person. Now, having said that, let us focus ourselves on how philosophy views the self. What is going on when we talk about in the world of philosophy, what is self, as far as the philosophers are concerned? You have to understand in philosophy rather, no, lagi nila sinasabi yung know thyself. Na kung tayo, ang greetings natin usually on a regular basis is good day, good morning, good afternoon, how are you, hello. Now, during the times of civilized Greeks, no, in ancient Greeks, in ancient times, ang bati nila is know thyself. And why is it very much important to them? Because para sa kanila, knowing oneself is basically a measurable fact, no, that pertains to the self. Wala daw ibang makakakilala sa'yo kundi yung ikaw mismo. No? And they also have said that self-moderation is actually a key in philosophy because anything that is excessive is not good. And you should be able to find a balance in everything. Okay? Now, having said that, as far as philosophy is concerned, prudence and good judgment is actually an ethical requirement for them to be able to have a balanced life and that they may be able to avoid harm. No, para sa kanila importante na ang isang tao ay dapat prudent at dapat ay merong good judgment. At paano makukuha ang good judgment? It is only through developing your wisdom, being able to know things in a holistic manner and not just giving a bias or a label or a stereotype on a certain field, for example. For philosophers, it's important that you possess the excellence of the soul because for the Greeks, the soul is the essence of the person. So later on, you will come to identify that there is a common denominator between the personalities I will be discussing to you on how they view the self. No? So we will be starting off with Socrates or Socrates. He was the first philosopher who engaged in a systematic questioning about the self, or what we know nowadays as the Socratic Method. No? As for Socrates, the true task of a philosopher is to know oneself. No, yan lang daw yung trabaho ng isang philosopher. Hindi niya kailangan masyado mag-isip, but kailangan niya lang talagang makilala kung sino siya. No? And he also claimed that an unexamined life is not worth living. Meaning, if you live your life just going with the flow, no, just going on to what the life will bring you, no, hindi mo chine-check kung ano yung nangyayari sa sarili mo, you don't examine your life, definitely that is not the life that is worth living for. No? And for Socrates, he is also a pioneer on claiming that man is dualistic in nature, meaning it is composed by body and soul. So as far as Socrates is concerned, he views that the self should always be examined and that it is composed by body and soul. Then we proceed with Plato. Plato is actually a student of Socrates. So medyo sinundan lang niya yung mga sinasabi ni Socrates, no? At naniniwala siya that man is dual in nature. However, binigyan niya ng components yung soul, no? Dahil since naniniwala nga siya that man is basically composed of body and soul, yung soul ay dinivide niya further into different components. No? You have your rational soul, you have your spirited soul, and you have your appetitive soul. No? Anong pinagkaiba ng tatlo? Rational self is composed by reason and intellect, kaya siya tinawag na rational because everything else comes from here. And then your spirited part is in charge of your emotions, how you feel, what you feel. No? And the appetitive soul is in charge with your base desires or your instinctive desires like eating, drinking, no? Clothing, shelter, and the like. No? So that is the components of the soul. Then we proceed to Augustine or Saint Augustine. He also agreed dun sa sinabi ni Socrates at ni Plato that man is bifurcated in nature, meaning dalawa yung composition. No? But he further reiterated that the body is actually bound to die, but the soul is anticipated to live eternally, no? And with communion kay God, no? Dun sa pinaniniwalaang God. No, he claimed that the development of the self is achieved through self-realization. No, parang kagaya din ni Socrates, so that it's important to examine your life and you realize yourself. Anong nangyayari sa'yo? Bakit ganun yung nangyayari sa'yo? Bakit mo naiisip yung mga ganyang bagay and the like. And St. Augustine was one in saying, no, that the man's ultimate goal or end goal is happiness. And it's actually a cycle, no? Kagaya ng sabi ni Aristotle, kung natatandaan nyo, no, that happiness can only be found by living a virtuous life. And virtue cannot be taught, no, because virtue is just like a seed planted in us that is waiting to bloom. So lahat daw tayo ay meron namang virtue at inaantay lang na mabuhay sa ating mga sarili. Next, we proceed with Thomas Aquinas, St. Thomas Aquinas, and he also believed that man is dualistic in nature, pero iba lang yung term niya, no? Ginamit niya yung term na matter and form, no? And for St. Thomas Aquinas, ang tawag niya dun sa matter is the highly, and the form is the morphe. Now, anong pinagkaiba ng dalawa? Basically, yung common stuff that makes up us is the highly or the matter. That is our soul. And morphe is the essence of the substance. No? Kung ano yung nakikita natin. And that is basically your body. Okay? Moving forward is René Descartes. So, he is actually the father of modern philosophy. And he also believes that the self or the human person has a body and mind, no? So, nagpalit lang ng term, pero basically, dualistic mode pa rin yung ini-entail ni René Descartes. And he also claimed that there is so much that we should doubt, no? Dapat marami daw tayong pinagdududahan because that is what our mind is supposed to do, no, para ma-rationalize niya what is real from what is not real, from what is true from what is not. And sometimes even our senses can deceive us, no? Ang example nga dyan, yung asukal at yung iodized salt, they may look the same, exactly the same in our bare eyes, but the moment that we taste it, magkaiba, no? So that is an example that even our senses can deceive us. No, he believed with the saying that I think, therefore I am, cogito ergo sum. When you think, therefore you are in existence. The self for him is a combination of two distinct entities, cogito and extensa. Cogito is the mind, which is responsible for thinking, and extensa is a mere extension or your body. Okay? Now we move forward to John Locke, another famous philosopher. And he said that, yes, tama kayong lahat sa pagsasabi that man, humans, the self is actually comprised of a body and soul, mind and matter, body and mind, but it should be unified by consciousness. Now, merong awareness. And this consciousness is unified by connections between our mental states, no? And sabi niya, this is what makes you the same person from yesterday, from last week, from last year, no? Aware ka what is happening within yourself. You know that this is who you are way back, now, and in the future, no? The self is what makes you you. And consciousness makes your personal identity. Okay, so yan po ang sinabi ni John Locke. And then, we proceed with David Hume. David Hume says that one can only know what can the senses experience and feel. And knowledge can be attainable by experiencing. And the self is a mere bundle of impressions. Now, para naman kay David Hume, the self will exist only if we have experience, no, we have our senses validated it, and the ideas are mere copies of our impression. So para kay David Hume, yung self natin hindi lang dapat aware tayo, but pinatototohanan din yan ng ating mga experiences and our self, our senses rather. And then we proceed with Immanuel Kant. He believed in transcendental enduring self. I believe, no, you already know what transcendence is all about. It refers to ourself as a transcendental ego, meaning we have the tendency to move forward, to go higher, to go a step beyond ourself right now. So, hindi masyado na-discuss yung composition ng self, but what Immanuel Kant described is that we are capable of becoming a better version of ourselves. Okay? And then next is Gilbert Ryle. He said that actually the self is what we manifest into our day-to-day life. It is not just an entity that we can locate, but it is actually a convenient name, no, for us to, in referring to the behavior that we make. So, si Ryle naman, very particular siya, no? That, yes, we are composed with the body and the mind, with the body and the soul, then what now? What's important is that we should be manifesting ourselves into our day-to-day lives, and we should always perform this, and dapat eto talaga yung behavior natin para masabi na this is myself, this is who I am. And lastly is Merleau and Ponty, and they also acknowledge that the body and mind are so intertwined, and it is impossible to find experience kapag hindi nararamdaman, no, with our senses. No, dapat daw po ay embodied yung experience natin so that we may be able to say that this is actually who we really are. Okay, so that's all for philosophy. If you have questions, just feel free to message me through our platform, in our group chats, in our Facebook groups. So keep safe, and I hope we will be meeting very, very soon, and you just have to keep posted on the instructions that I will be giving to you in our next discussion. Thank you very much, and God bless you.